started working in radio in El Paso? Any guesses? What year? We want to take a guess.
1990?
Close, but I'm not that old. What's that?
1996.
96 is close too.
98.
98? No. Older?
97?
Nope.
93?
Nope. This is,
2004.
you know what? This is, who said 95? All right. Good. Here you go. You're welcome. Enjoy. Don't worry, there's more tickets. In fact, Mr. Towns has 3 more 4-packs that he's going to give away to you during the week. So you'll be all set. Good to go. So yes, I started in 1995. I went to the University of Texas at Austin. I was there from 91 to 95, majored in broadcast journalism, and kind of knew that radio is what I wanted to do when I started working at the student station and started kind of getting my feet wet in what radio was all about. But back then, it's completely different than it is today. Everything is different than it is today. In those days, we edited on reel-to-reels. Does anybody have any idea what a reel-to-reel machine is? You do?
It's kind of like a cassette tape machine.
Kind of. Like a big version of a cassette machine. Yes. Yes. The reels were enormous. You would basically record on either a 2-track, a 4-track, or an 8-track. The bigger the track, the bigger the tape. And then when you wanted to make edits, nowadays with audio software, all you have to do is highlight, hit delete, and it's gone. In those days, you would take a razor blade, you cut the tape, literally cut it, and then you would move to where the edit was, cut that part, splice it back together again with tape, and you had yourself an edited version of the reel-to-reel. We did that all the time. That was basically how we edited. And funny enough, we actually still have old reel-to-reel players at a radio station that still work and still have reels. So if we ever wanted to kind of get back to those old days, that's exactly how we would go about doing it. So my day is spent in sales in the morning and afternoon, and then I go on at 4 o'clock hosting a 3-hour sports radio show. I'm doing that for 29 years. I took that over in 1997. I started out with Buzz on KLAQ from 95 to 97. And fun fact, I taught audio production here in 2011 and 2012. Yes. In fact, the man in the back hired me. So, had...
Still regretting it.
Well, yes, don't worry. And had I had my way, I would still be teaching with Professor Carr and the whole group. But unfortunately, family kind of plays into it. I have a 13-year-old, and at that time he was just born, so I had to make a choice. Help be around more on the weekends for my then newborn, or continue to teach audio production. So I trained with my wife. She became EPCC full-time. I went back to doing just radio, and now she is a tenure-track instructor in the Department of Nutrition out here at EPCC. So it's all really cool how things kind of work out and the way things happen. So as I said, about 3/4 of my day is spent in marketing and sales with advertisements and commercials, which we'll talk about. Then the other 3 hours is all the fun and games where I have to play on the radio and sound like I actually know what I'm talking about when it comes to sports here locally. Did anybody hear about what happened with UTEP and New Mexico State on Saturday night?
Right.
Yeah, it was good. These two teams don't like each other in basketball. They've been playing for a long time. After the game, head coach of UTEP was upset with New Mexico State. So as they do in the handshake line, he gets angry. He starts pushing the coach, goes after the whole bench. The teams kind of meet at the benches. They have to separate each other. They're yelling and screaming. Great video for social media. So, funny story. I'm at the game, and I'm covering it. My partner, who's at the radio station, says, get a couple of quick videos, we'll put it on Instagram, goes get a couple of shots of the team scoring, and go get the handshake line after the game, not having any idea what was going to happen. So sure enough, I'm shooting a vertical video of the handshake line, and that's when all hell breaks out. We put it on Instagram. We've had 350,000 views since Saturday. So not bad. Not bad at all for us. And that's kind of how our jobs have evolved over the last 5-10 years. It used to be where on radio, your radio show, you get phone calls, and for 3 hours, we just take calls, and that's how we break our stories down. In fact, you didn't know what was going on locally until you listened to our show. We had all the stories, we would get it, and then people would hear it for the first time. By the time we get on the radio now, what do you think happens?
It's all over the internet.
Old news, right? Everybody knows. Because it's all over the internet, it's all over your phones, your feed. So by the time we come on, well, what should be breaking news is, even if it's 20 minutes old news. So you have to figure out how can we engage people and make them interested and want to listen to us talk for hours at a time, when chances are we're talking about things they've already heard, which is interesting because the challenge there is what kind of spin, what kind of angles can we take that will fire people up, get them engaged, because instead of calling the shows now, they tweet, they post on your app, and they message you, they text, and everything else. So it's funny because we still have the same amount of engagement like we used to, except there's just different forms now of engagement, if that's how you kind of understand things. Is there any marketing students here at all? Anybody that deals with like production, audio production? Any audio editors? 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. Does everybody enjoy, like, what do you like the most about audio editing in terms of audio production? What's the most fun for you?
The mixing.
Okay. Specifically, do you like to put a bunch of channels together and then mix all these different sound files together, or how do you do it?
Yeah, well, I like to arrange it first and then get it all into groups and
Yep.
then eventually edit it or mix
Nice.
it. Yeah.
Do you use a lot of special effects?
Yeah.
Cool.
Of course.
Cool.
Good reverb delay.
Yeah, just having fun. How about the rest of you? For audio production, what do you enjoy the most?
I like arranging and setting up like how the whole frame will be, bringing up some emotion to the people when they listen to it.
Now, do you do mostly songs, or do you do other things as well?
Commercials and music as well.
Commercials? Good. Because that's what I've been dealing with mostly. In fact, I had to deal with commercials this morning, and I'm handling the El Paso Chihuahuas. So tickets are going on sale this week, and we had 3 commercials we had to get ready for. The on-sale commercials, opening week, and then also their big Stars and Stripes July 4th week. So we put those commercials together. It's kind of funny because the person who voiced it for me, she was in with me last Friday. We did 3 commercials, knocked them out, 30 seconds each. They're great. Calls me up and says, we got a problem. I said, what's that? She goes, well, instead of saying April 7th on opening day, I said September 7th. So I need to come back in and revoice it. And I said, well, we did 3 commercials. Do you remember if you said April in any of the other commercials? She said, I did. I said, well, that's great. So what I did is, when I record commercials for clients, I do what I call a dry spot, which is just your voice, no music, and then I'll mix it together and we'll do a mix spot. So that way, if we ever have this issue come up, rather than start all over again, we can make the edits. So what I found was that she perfectly said the right date on another commercial, which I had without music, cut it, isolated it, took out the September, replaced it with April, could not tell the difference between the 2 commercials, which it was. And it was great for me because it took me 10 minutes. I didn't have to have her come in, because as all of you know, if somebody has to come in and revoice something, chances are they'll have to revoice the whole spot. You'll start again. Because tone, inflection, levels, it's never always the same like you wanted from a previous mix or a previous edit. So if you can ever figure out a way to just have extra spots without music mixed, it's a great way to take care of corrections. So for me it was perfect, because I told her I'll find it. Sure enough, this morning I went ahead, got that edited, took care of that, no problem. Piece of cake.
Does your voice change then from the morning to the afternoon?
Yeah, it gets raspier in the mornings when I first wake up. It's very true. Yes, my voice, generally speaking, gets higher pitched throughout the course of the day. And when people piss me off and fire me up, my voice gets really high pitched, and then it just turns into a completely different person. So you never know what's going to happen. But for the most part, in the mornings when I start my day, it's like everybody else, you know, you need to drink a little coffee, kind of get your day started. But as you do, your voice changes. What you'll hear me sometimes with, if I go on with Buzz at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning on the queue, compared to what I do in the afternoons, a little different tone. Maybe a little deeper, depending on how things go. Do a lot of you find the same way when you voice that certain times of day your voice are a little different than other times? Yeah. But if you use special effects, that can be kind of fun, right? In fact, here's what's really interesting. Now, this is a new trend we're noticing. So, if you listen to the radio, you'll notice sometimes you hear the same voices on every commercial. And it'll drive you nuts, right? Because like, how many times can you hear one person voice a commercial? And for us, that was always an issue. We always had the same commercial, like the same voices on all these commercials. So what we've noticed recently is that with AI technology, we now can create voices that are not the market voices you're used to hearing, but it's like it's our voice through a processor, and then we use AI to make it sound different, whether it's a male to a female, like a higher pitch to a darker pitch, or so on and so forth, lower pitch. So we do that a lot. And nowadays, like when you'll hear a commercial, sometimes it might sound a little too good. And you think to yourself, is that AI? Chances are it is. Because we do, and you're hearing a lot of AI-voiced commercials these days. Some is good, some isn't good, but you know, our director of production, his name is Duke Keith. Duke's been around 1,000 years, longer than I have, which is amazing. I've been doing this, like I said, 31 years. Duke started in, I think, 1992. But he is in charge of all the commercials, not just for us, but for markets all over our corporate, different states and different cities through Town Square, which is our ownership group. And he's producing probably 10 times as many commercials outside of El Paso as he is in El Paso. So to make it easier, he'll put his voice on it, change the voice to something that you would never know is him through AI, and then he uses that as the voice for certain commercials. So it's kind of interesting. But it's great because if he doesn't do that, it usually takes days to sometimes get other voice talent in other cities and other markets to take a script, read a script, voice it, and send it back to you. So this is a very easy way to turn it around fast, still have it sound professional, just not have necessarily the exact same voice on the commercials like you're used to hearing. Are there any? Yes, sir.
What AI you guys use?
That's a good question. I don't know the exact software. I'll find out. We'll ask him, and then we'll. Who knows? Maybe we'll call him during the time we have today, and we'll find out directly from him exactly what he uses. I'll let you know on that.
I like tricks too.
Yeah, you got it.
In the analog days, we used to have a roll of, we would record a reel of ambient noise, room noise, to disguise the edits. Do you still do that with digital editing?
So, that's a great question.
We may want to tell them what ambient noise is.
Yeah, I mean, well, ambient noise is, well, with the exception of this, which we're hearing in the background. Yeah, it's just like taking like your normal room sound and just putting that down on like as a track, so you don't necessarily hear what would be a jump cut when you kind of go from one to another. You give it more space. Digital editing is so much easier because now you could essentially take half a second of dead air, copy it, place it anywhere in the audio you want, and it almost makes it like a seamless edit, which we didn't have in those days, because as you mentioned, we were doing a lot of cutting and pasting. So if you had to take something out that was not right, and then you had to like splice the tape, you didn't have the ability to necessarily put like a lot of extra seconds in between. Otherwise, you'd be worried about having too much tape, and next thing you know, you might have your reel break in the middle of playback because of how everything is going. I started in this business, as I said, right when computer editing was starting, like in the beginning, in its infancy, right around the mid-90s, and we just got the software. And I'll never forget, Buzz, who was starting with us in '92, he was asked to start using computer editing. And he said, no, it's a fad. Computers are never going to turn into anything. And he insisted on editing with his 4-track player. It's the big thick tape like this. Because when he would do his radio bits, that's how he grew up. That's how he learned. He resisted computer editing longer than any of the other staffers because he just didn't want to do it. He thought it was going to take more time to edit on the computer than it would with his reel-to-reels. And I just remember how frustrated management was with him because they could not get him to transfer to the computer editing. And he was probably 2 years later than everybody else. And even when machines weren't being used like those old reel-to-reels, he used them because that's how he knew how he would edit a lot of his comedy bits and things like he did for the radio station. So, you had a question before?
How often is your voice changed by AI?
My voice changed by AI? Not much. I don't voice as many commercials in this market like he does. So he'll use his voice more with AI than mine. I'm only on a handful of radio commercials in El Paso. Most of them are on the UTEP broadcasts when we air the UTEP games, but the rest of them aren't. Now, I do commercials in Illinois and Washington State with our other radio stations over there. So if you're ever traveling to the Midwest and you're listening to the radio, you might hear me because I do commercials for them, which is pretty good. Yes, sir.
What is your software preference for editing, audio editing?
Well, I remember when I was here working with Professor Carr, GarageBand was like the really big thing back in those days.
And it was built in and it was free.
That's right. That's right. But I had never used GarageBand. So when I was teaching my audio production class, I had to learn GarageBand like everybody else because I had never used it. We never did any editing. We still don't at the radio station with GarageBand. We use Audition. That's just what we use. We use an old, archaic version of Audition because, truth be told, our station's too damn cheap to buy the newer version, which requires a license. This requires free. You could put the free old copies on all the computers and make it easy for people to use and edit. So I remember when we first got the newer version of Audition here at the college, I was so happy to use it because we hadn't seen it at the radio station yet. And that was 20 years ago. So it's crazy to think about how things have come around. But yeah, we use very basic, it's embarrassing what we have, but it works. And as long as it works and it's easy for people to have, they're not going to change out. Yes, sir. You have a question? Oh, okay. I thought you did. Yes.
Is it hard for you to work with other people if they don't use the same DAW or something?
Nah, it's not bad. We adjust. So we have a really good internship program at the radio station. And what we do is we do spring, summer, fall interns. A lot of them are EPCC students. Some are UTEP. Some are New Mexico State. And what they'll do is they'll spend anywhere the whole semester with us. We want them to basically not only use their editing skills for some of the things we do at the radio station, but we give them on-air work as well. Because sometimes people come in and they say, you know what, I'd like to get into talk radio. I do podcasts and I've gotten comfortable with that. So we throw them on the radio, see what they can do, and it's amazing. We've had people that have left us that have gone on to do TV anchors, radio hosts. Some have become DJs professionally. Others have become audio engineers with the Chihuahuas and the Locomotive. They've done podcasts. It's pretty remarkable to see how many of the people that have worked with us on our internships have gone on to do so many things afterwards. So we're really pretty proud of that. Yes, sir.
What started your passion or motivated you to get into the broadcast world?
Okay, great question. So I just got this for my anniversary from my wife. It's a New York Mets water bottle.
Go Yankees.
Thank you. That's nice. Thank you. Well, anyway. Yes. Yeah, you can't be a fan of the Mets and the Yankees, either one or the other. So truth be told, I was a Yankee fan when I was little and I was living in New York. And this was late 70s because the Yankees were always going to the World Series in those days, playing the Dodgers. And then my favorite Yankee player of all time, Thurman Munson, who was a catcher, dies in a plane crash because he was flying his private jet, practicing takeoffs and landings, didn't get control of the landing properly, crashed his plane and died in the middle of the season. This was 1979. So he lost Thurman, traded Reggie Jackson to the Angels, and I was like, you know what, that's it. I'm going to pick the worst team in baseball that I can root for. I found the Mets. That was 1982.
So I've been a Mets fan ever since. So my dream was always to play in the outfield for the New York Mets because I played high school ball here in El Paso at Coronado. Anyway, once I realized that those dreams were never going to happen, and I went to college at the University of Texas, I wanted to get into print journalism because I'd done some of that at Coronado at the time because they didn't have a radio station. So went to see the print sports editor. He told me that for the first year I would do no writing. All I would do is stay by the copy machine and pull off all the stories and hand them to people, but I wouldn't do anything fun. And I thought that seems like the lamest ever for somebody going into college. So at that same time, there was a student radio station at UT, and they offered anybody a chance to go on the radio with any experience or not. So I started doing it in college, and I fell in love with it. I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. So I did sports radio for 3 years. And the reason I loved it so much was in Austin, in those days, you could cover the Spurs in San Antonio, the NBA team. You could cover the Cowboys, the Mavericks, any sport you wanted. And because it was the University of Texas, they gave you media access, courtside seats. It was the coolest thing ever. So I was sitting there, I was like 20 years old, and I'm going to these NBA games, and I'm sitting right in the press table, and behind me are all these people that are paying thousands of dollars for their seats. And I'm looking at them saying, this is the job I want to have for the rest of my life. And pretty much that's exactly what happened. It sold me on it. So I did student radio at UT, started here in the mid-90s on the Q, took over the afternoon drive sports radio show in the summer of 1997, and I've been doing the same show on the same station during the same time almost the last 30 years here in El Paso. So it's been good. Mr. Towns mentioned the Super Bowl. So one of the things, now I've done pretty much every kind of broadcast you can imagine. I broadcasted from New York City right after 9/11. And right when New York was reopening again after the Twin Towers fell down, they flew us to New York, had us broadcast live for 4 days so everybody knew that New York was safe. I went to Vegas twice a year for 7 years, and I was media and ringside for every Oscar De La Hoya championship fight. So saw all of that. Had the opportunity to go to Phoenix and broadcast from the Diamondbacks, the Dodgers from their spring training facility. Like you name it, I've had a chance to do just about all of it. The one thing I never was able to do was broadcast from the NFL Super Bowl. And it's because Radio Row, which is like all the best radio stations and TV stations in the country, it was kind of an exclusive group. And I tried for years to apply, and they would always turn me down and say, "Now El Paso's too small." Well, 4 years ago, applied again, got turned down. But we have a colleague who works in Austin who knew somebody in the NFL, reached out, and the NFL said, okay, you can broadcast from Radio Row. So we did that 4 years ago, and it was fantastic. It was in Phoenix. We had the time of our lives, had a great time. Next year was Vegas. We applied, got back in, did it again. Last year, New Orleans, applied, got back in, did it again. This year, San Francisco, same thing. So 4 years in a row, we've broadcasted live from Radio Row. It's about 130 of the biggest radio stations in the country. But the difference now is podcasts are going in. And what the NFL is finding is that they don't really care about the radio stations like they used to. But if you have a podcast and you have 100,000 subscribers, you've got a better chance to get into Radio Row than we do, because that's how the media has evolved as far as what really sports and broadcasting is all about right now. And it's so interesting because a lot of these people that are doing really good podcasts, they don't have a media background. I got my degree in journalism. I knew from when I first got into college, this is what I wanted to do. A lot of the people that are doing podcasts are former athletes or actors or just random people that decided, I have a computer, I have a microphone, I want to try doing this. And it's completely like organic how they start. And then the next thing you know, everybody's watching them, and all of a sudden, there they are. They're at Radio Row at the Super Bowl. And we're like, you're not even sports. But the NFL doesn't care, because all they want is as many eyeballs on their content as they can possibly have. So that's the most interesting thing about it. There's a chance that one of you in the next 5 or 10 years could be at the Super Bowl doing exactly what I did, because maybe you start a podcast and maybe it blows up and everybody's seeing it. And you decide, you know what? I want to go to the Super Bowl. There's going to be everybody there. I can talk to anybody I want. So you'll be there set up with your cameras and your computers and your home microphones and your setup, and you're doing the same exact thing we're doing. It's amazing. Yeah. Hey, by the way, I'm on at 4 o'clock and I'm talking a lot. So I feel more than happy to have any questions you might have. Please, just feel free to shoot away.
With you, I think I had one of my students work with, I forgot his name, that was with the ESPN radio. But
You did, and I forgot him too, so it must have been a great intern.
What do you expect? One of these students might aspire to be your assistant at ESPN Radio.
I love it.
What are your expectations for them planning to work for you on your
Great question. Okay, first thing is this, be reliable. If you're gonna, we always tell our interns the same thing. An internship is what you make of it. If you wanna come in once or twice a week, and you come in late and you leave early, you're not gonna get much out of it. Then in all honesty, it's gonna be a waste of time for you, more than it is for us. Because as far as we're concerned, we're doing this to help you. We want you to feel better after spending a few months with us than you did beforehand. So all we ask is you put the time in, you work hard, you wanna just find as many different things to do as you possibly can. Our business is all about multitasking. The more things you can do and do well, the more valuable you're gonna be, the more people are gonna wanna hire you. If you're a one-trick pony and you do this really well, but you can't do anything else, then it's tougher because there's others that do the same thing that you do, but they might do 3, 4, 5 other things well, and you don't. So with internships, we always tell you, look, we're gonna put you on the radio if you're comfortable. I've had interns that are completely behind the scenes people, and all they tell us is, we want to learn about radio production. We want to do more of the editing. We want to do some of the behind the scenes social media. That's what we're into, and that's fine. And if that's the case, you can still intern with us. We're just not going to put you on the radio because we don't want you to do something that you're not comfortable with. But others that I've talked to get on the microphone, and it's like they're made to do this. Like they're confident. They know what they're talking about. Some of them are really funny. I mean, you just never know until you hear them for the first time. And I've got a pretty good eye for this. Ear, I should say, ear. Eye for talent, ear for talent. So if I hear you and I hear something I really like, I'll pick up on it immediately, and we'll have a lot of fun in that capacity as well. And as our internships grow, you get more excited about coming in, you feel good about being there, and if it's the summer, we might send you to some Chihuahuas and Locomotive games where you can meet some of the players, do interviews, practice, get really good at that. If it's the fall or the spring, we'll send you to UTEP games. You could also cover those and get more comfortable in that aspect of it with us. And we could show you what the media conferences are like, and you can learn about the coaches and all the behind the scenes stuff so that by the time it's done, you feel pretty good about it. Yes, sir.
So if somebody was, like, I was interested in trying to take part in the internship program, how would I do that?
If you want to do what?
If I wanted to join, like, the internship program?
Oh, all you got to do is talk to your advisor. We just make sure that you need the hours. We can't do free internships. Unfortunately, we can't pay you. So you need college credit for it. So as long as you're getting credit hours towards whatever degree you're looking for, then it works out for us. Then what we'll do is you'll reach out to us. We'll have you come to the radio station. We'll talk about the internship, let you know what's available. There's some paperwork and some forms. We'll ask you to fill out a background check, and as long as that passes, you'll be in the clear. You'll be good. Knock on wood, we've been very, is this wood? Close enough. We've been very lucky with our background checks so far. We haven't had any issues come up, but it's just standard protocol. We're a publicly traded company, that's what we ask for. And then once all that comes back, if it's something you want to do, we'll put you to work. It'll be really good.
This is something for, like you talked to, like commercial music and maybe Mr. Hamley's audio production.
Yes.
You had programs that you hosted with Buzz and everything like that. What makes a great commercial that people really gravitate towards? A radio commercial, that is.
So-
What's a good radio commercial?
So I'm going to answer this like my market president, Brad Dubois, who's been running our radio stations for the last 38 years, something like that, 37, 38 years. Because this is his wheelhouse. And he'll be the first to tell you that when you talk to a business, okay, and you're looking to get them to advertise for the first time, and look, this could be you. Let's say you guys start a podcast, and the podcast is going great, but you need you want to make some money. You don't want to just do it for free all the time, and you have to cover some expenses. So you want to get a company to work with you, whether it's you talk about them and you read a commercial, you shoot a video for them, whatever. The key with all of that is ideas and creativity. The more creative your commercial is, the more it stands out, the better you have an opportunity for people to remember it. You don't want to just be white noise. You don't want to run something where people hear it, but it doesn't really doesn't make you want to act. You want something that is either going to be funny, clever, a jingle, something that makes you think about that business besides hearing it just once. You'll hear it and you'll feel like, oh yeah, I know exactly who that is. Do any of you guys have a company that when you see a commercial or hear a commercial, you know them because of something? Which one?
I love the Michael Gopin commercials on TV. I think they're funny.
What just happened? Michael Gopin just happened. Now, Michael Gopin was my camp counselor when I was 6 years old. So I've known him before he became an attorney, back when he was right out of high school going to college. His commercials are fun. And it's funny because before that, William Shatner was his spokesperson. William Shatner was Captain Kirk in the original Star Trek, okay? And he's been acting forever. And he would come on and be talking about Michael Gopin. William Shatner made like $100,000 a year just from Michael Gopin as an endorser for his law firm. So can you imagine how much money William Shatner was probably, let's say he did 20 of those around the country, just like that. And all he's on for like 8 seconds. Like, this is William Shatner. Call the law offices of Michael Gopin. You'll be taken care of. It's like, cha-ching, $100,000. God, what a great gig that is. Guy could be making millions just from doing this. But you remembered the Gopin. Now, he got tired of paying William Shatner because he said, you know what, I'm spending all this money on William Shatner, but I don't think he's bringing me any cases. So now he's got his actors. They do these crazy things. There's this one guy that's like his insurance, always the insurance guy, and then Gopin's in every commercial, and they end it with like, what just happened? Michael Gopin just happened. So I'm happy you said that, and he'll like that because, again, he's trying to be different. He's trying to do something that'll make you remember, you know? Anybody else have any commercials? Yes.
Is there something that you haven't done that you want to accomplish before retirement or something?
The only thing I ever wanted to do that I haven't done yet, I wanted to work in New York City. I'm originally from New York, was born in Brooklyn, moved here when I was little, so I grew up in El Paso, right? But I always felt like New York sports radio was the one thing I wanted to do that I could never do. Unfortunately, that ship has sailed because I just don't see myself at this position being able or wanting to do that like I used to. But everything else, I pretty much feel like I've done. I did TV sportscasting for 7 years. Didn't like it. Never liked TV sportscasting, but I did it. And I always felt like, why would you want to prepare like 7 hours for 3 minutes behind the camera, right? I never personally got into that. I did it because it was good extra money. And at the time I was still single and just thought, it's something to do on weekends. But I didn't want to put on makeup. I thought that was a pain in the ass. You know, one day I was at a bar after my 10 o'clock show, and I'm meeting some friends, including now my wife of 20 years. And I'm at Pelican's restaurant, and I was in the bar. I just got off the air. I'm with their group, and my compact falls on the floor. And I'm looking around like, oh, what am I going to say? So I like kind of nudged my then friend, who's now my wife, and I said, hey, can you pick up what just fell on the floor? She's like, what is that? I go, it's my compact. She looked at me like I was nuts. She thought that was the funniest thing she had ever heard in her entire life, that here's this guy showing up with a makeup compact. But hey, I had to have it, and I didn't want anybody else to see it. So she carefully picked it up, gave it to me, I slept it back in my pocket, and that was that. But the funny thing is this, when you do TV, you don't even realize this, but when you're doing a TV anchor, right, and you're doing the news, think about this. You're at a desk, right, and you're next to the newscaster and whoever. You got an earpiece, the producer and director are talking to you in your ears, right? So here's why I never liked TV. So I would spend all these hours preparing for a 4-minute sportscast, right? And then I'd get on the set, and the first thing I'd hear is, news went long, we're cutting you to 2.5 minutes. So right out of the gate, I'm pissed off, because now my 4-minute sportscast is a 2.5-minute sportscast. So I'm like, okay, so we'll cut this story, we'll cut that story, we'll cut that story, we're fine. So here's what would happen. You have the camera guy, right? And you're looking at the camera. Then you've got what we call the teleprompter. That's where it's showing you all the words as you're getting ready to read your sportscast. That would crash 1 out of every 5 times. So you're in the middle, and all of it, but you have your paper copy. Okay, so you have your paper copy, and there's your teleprompter, and all of a sudden, it wasn't moving like it's supposed to move. It would be frozen, or all of a sudden, they'd have to reset it in the middle of the sportscast, and it'd be blank. Then you had to deal with a tape operator. So you cut your highlights of all your games, you put them on these beta tapes in those days, and you hand them to the tape deck person. Well, what if the tape machine jams in the middle of your sportscast? Now you got no highlights. So I've had sportscasts where my tapes were out of order or they jammed, the stupid teleprompter was down, and I'm sitting there and I'm for 3 minutes trying to give a sportscast, I have no highlights, and I have no script to read from. So the good news for me is I'm a radio guy. I don't use a script, ever. I just wing it. Everything I ever do, I've always been able to wing it. I don't ever write anything down. No interview questions, no topics. It's all here. So chances are, if I've spent 4 hours working on a sportscast, I know what I'm going to talk about. And even if everything goes to shit, which it does, I'm not going to panic because I'm used to ad-libbing on the radio. So it might not be word for word the exact same thing that I wrote, but I'll get through it fine and I'll be okay. But I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that in TV you got to rely on so many different people to make you come out as good as you need to be. And the next time you watch a television newscast, think about all the other behind the scenes people that are working. The camera guys are gone. Now it's all robots. Every camera, I just did a TV segment like 3 months ago at Channel 7. Every camera in the news was robot operated. There was not one human being behind those cameras. It's all based on just remote controls from the desk, which is wild. And then, you know, all these other people that are supposed to be doing things, well, you hope that it's all right, because if anything goes wrong, then you've got to figure out a way to get through it. And sometimes you'll watch whether, and then the poor live people, when they're doing remotes, half the times their feeds might go out, or they might not hear you. And then you're talking to them and they're looking at you like you're nuts and asking who, what, you know, like it's so interesting, but I couldn't handle that. I like to be in control in radio. Just give me my microphone and let me do what I need to do, and everything will always work out good, which is why I eventually just decided to get out of TV and go into radio.
I think this is a problem that a lot of creative people face, whether it be like broadcasting, music, engineering. How do you get through burnout?
It's a great question. You just gotta love what you do more than anything else, and just feel like, because I've had burnout. I mean, how many days are you gonna go on the radio and talk about how UTEP sucks? Be honest. Seriously, think about that, okay? And I'm being 100% serious, because in the 30 years I've done this, what's UTEP been good? 5 out of those 30 years? Which means 25 years they've sucked. And I got to go on the air and somehow make people feel like, oh, you know, hey, we got something great to talk about today. So, and that is hard. See, like for me, it's not even burnout on my end. It's my listeners. I'm thinking about my listeners. How do I keep them from getting burned out? Because if a listener burns out, they tune you out. And if they tune you out, you lose them. You know what I mean? So like, I got to always come up with something that I think is interesting enough to catch their attention. For me, I'll just say this. I've been doing it so long, I love what I do, that I've somehow figured out a way to never say, man, I've had enough of this. In all honesty, if I stepped away from radio tomorrow on air and I just stopped being on air, I'm perfectly happy. I've done everything I could possibly do in this business from an on-air standpoint. I've checked off all the boxes. I feel good about like my whole career, so I would be okay. But there are other people that do get burnt out, that just feel like there's too much, like, you know, if you're doing the same thing all the time over and over and over again, there does come a point where you reach your limit. I guess the best way to describe it is just keep reinventing yourself, or just find things you can do that still make the job fun after all, you know, after all the years you do it. And as long as you come to work happy, excited about the challenges of what you have to face, hopefully you won't have to risk potentially burnout.
Okay, this question is for me. Every now and then I get to go on a show. Yes, I talk music, but those of you know me, I love sports. So I'm gonna end with this. CEO will give you 4 teams. Arizona Wildcats, the Duke Blue Devils, Houston Cougars, Michigan Wolverines. Who do you have going to the Final Four or winning it all, or possibly going there? You know, who are you favoring now that we're entering, you know, the March Madness?
You just named basically the 4 best teams in college basketball.
Who do you have winning it all?
It's a good question. I don't have Houston because their head coach said they're poor. Kelvin Sampson. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
By the way, do you? Okay. Does everybody understand how NIL works in college athletics?
Very controversial.
Here's the 30-second Cliff Notes version. Every student athlete gets paid now to play college sports, okay? Some will make tens of thousands, others will make millions of dollars. The big schools have budgets. Michigan, for example, their basketball roster of, what is it, 13, 14 scholarship players, their combined name, image, likeness, how much money those players are making as a group, $13 million.
These are
It is nuts. So if Michigan does not make the championship game, well, there's your $13 million investment. Think about that, okay? It's crazy. Duke probably has pretty close to that. Houston's not near that. Houston's probably closer, I would say, to maybe the $5-6 million mark, which is still obscene when you think about how much money that is, but it's not Michigan dollars. I'll say this. So one of my, I've had a weekly guest, okay? He's come on with me since he was 14 years old. He started doing a podcast when he was 12, and his grandfather told me about it, and I didn't watch it. I thought, this is the most, what am I gonna do, waste my time watching a 12-year-old? So he hits me up when he's 14, and he says, I want you to watch this. So this time I watched it, and I liked the kid. He was funny. So I put him on the show. Just figured, let's put him on once, see what happens. Well, he's been on with me the last 4 years of his life. He's a senior right now at Coronado. He's going to Michigan. He got into the Michigan Business School. Brilliant kid, diehard Michigan fan. His brothers went to Duke. The whole family was in Washington, D.C. on Saturday to watch Duke play Michigan in college basketball. Duke beat Michigan. A very unhappy ride back to El Paso for the 18-year-old at Coronado. However, I still think Michigan, based on the coach, their players, I feel like they're a pretty good bet to get to the Final Four. I think Duke will as well. I love Arizona. Houston, I'm a little worried about. I almost feel like something will happen to Houston. So there could be that one dark horse, maybe that team that people aren't thinking about right now that still has a chance to get hot and can kind of go into the tournament.
You know, Duke has Cam Boozer, who's going to probably get the Wooden Award and everything.
Yes.
Michigan has all the hype, but you know what? I'm an Arizona Wildcats fan. They're
There you go.
good. They slipped up. They lost barely by two in a row.
Right.
And I have Arizona winning the 2026 NCAA championship for the March Madness.
I like that. I think that's a good bet. You should go to Vegas with that one. You should. That'll be good.
Now about the Cowboys.
Oh my God.
Anything else you want to add?
Oh yes, UTEP's NIL for basketball. We said Michigan is $13 million. UTEP's is $600,000. And by the way, You get what you pay for, okay? So unfortunately, they're changing conferences next year. They're going from Conference USA to the Mountain West, which is good because we'll see better schools that a lot of us grew up with, like New Mexico, but they're probably going to have about $1.2 to $1.5 million for basketball. That is still not nearly enough. In other words, $13 million could become $20 million next year. So the amount of money that players are getting paid is obscene. It's obscene. And if you were a player and you're making $1 million playing basketball, do you really care if you win or lose in college? You're getting paid no matter what. And that's part of the problem in college athletics right now. Athletes are getting too much. So to them, there's not that sense of urgency because they know win or lose, they're still making a ridiculous amount of money. And forget about the education. That used to be the big deal. Now it's like, oh yeah, by the way, maybe you'll go to class. Miami just played in football, the championship game. Their quarterback said on air he had not been to a class in 2 years. 2 years. And he's playing quarterback at the University of Miami. So that kind of tells you where college athletics is.
Real quick, on that same note regarding contracts.
Yes.
Do you think people are starting to pay way too much for pro sports to where these players are just getting ridiculous salaries?
Everything is out of control.
Everything's out.
Baseball is going to have a lockout next year, and it's because owners want a cap because they feel like players are making too much money because the Dodgers have endless money that they just keep giving everybody and build these super teams, and they want a salary cap. And of course, the players don't want a salary cap because some are making $70 million a year. Why would you want to be capped on a certain amount when you know they can pay you whatever? So it's going to be interesting. Baseball could be dealing with a lockout, which means the players are locked out. They're not allowed to play. There's no games. The season gets canceled. So keep an eye on that next year because there's going to be a serious labor issue going in baseball. So anyway, that's just a little bit. Hey, this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me, and definitely hope that maybe we'll see some future interns here in this class with us.
Exactly.